They thought they knew the real me until my ex decided to shatter everything online. But what if the truth she tried to bury was the one thing that could make me famous? I never thought it would end like this. For years, I believed we were solid, that what we had was real. She was my everything, and I thought I was hers. We shared dreams, late-night talks, and plans that stretched far into the future. Life felt simple when we were together. Even on rough days, I knew we'd get through because, in my mind, love always wins. But love doesn't always win. The day she left me was like a sudden storm on a calm sea. One minute everything was normal, we were laughing over coffee, planning a trip for the summer, and the next she told me she didn't want to be with me anymore. No warning, no big fight, just those cold words that hit harder than I expected. I think it's better if we're apart. I stared at her, confused, searching for a sign that this was some mistake. But she looked calm, distant even. She'd already made up her mind. I felt lost. How did this happen without a fight? Was I blind to what was wrong? The days after were filled with silence and questions I couldn't answer. I replayed every conversation, every moment, trying to find where it all went wrong. The shock slowly settled into a deep sadness, but somewhere beneath that, I clung to hope. Maybe she'd change her mind. Maybe this was just a pause. For a while, I kept my head down, focusing on work and friends, trying to hold myself together. Life outside still looked the same, familiar faces, familiar routines. No one else seemed to notice the storm brewing inside me. I was still me, right? Just broken. I told myself time would heal everything. I believed that if I stayed quiet, gave her space, the pain would fade. But that calm was only the surface. What I didn't know then was that this breakup was just the beginning, the trigger for something far worse. Something that would tear my world apart in a way I never expected. I thought the hardest part was over, that the breakup was the worst thing I'd have to face. But I was wrong. Just when I started to find some peace, everything exploded online. It began with small things, strange comments on my social media, whispers from people I barely knew. At first, I ignored them, assuming it was just gossip or jealousy. But then the messages got nastier, more personal. She had turned the internet into her battlefield, and I was the target. One night, scrolling through my notifications, I saw it, a post from an anonymous account, accusing me of things I never did. Lies about my character, twisted stories about our relationship, wild claims that made me look like a terrible person. The post quickly gained traction, spreading like wildfire. Friends started sending me screenshots, asking if it was true. I wanted to scream at them, "It's all lies." But words felt useless against a flood of hate. The worst part was the shock. I couldn't understand why she would do this. Wasn't there any part of her that still cared? Why tear me down in public? I replayed our last conversations, trying to find some clue, some warning that this was coming, but nothing made sense. I felt blindsided and exposed. Every day after that, I woke up to new attacks, comments accusing me of cheating, being selfish, even worse things that I couldn't believe someone would say. My phone buzzed constantly, not with support, but with anger and accusations. It hurt worse than the breakup itself because now the whole world was watching, judging, deciding I was the villain. I started to withdraw. I stopped posting, stopped replying, hoping it would all just blow over. But the damage was done. People I trusted looked at me differently, coworkers exchanged awkward glances, and friends seemed unsure how to act around me. The online smear wasn't just words on a screen, it was breaking down the life I'd built. And through it all, one thing was clear: I couldn't stay silent. This wasn't just a fight between two people anymore. It was my reputation, my future on the line. When the lies spread online, I thought maybe only strangers would believe them. I was wrong. The hardest blow came when people I trusted started doubting me. At work, I noticed subtle shifts, colleagues whispering in corners, awkward silences during meetings, and a few concerned questions about the rumors. It was like walking through a minefield, never knowing who would believe the lies next. My friends, the ones I had stood by for years, started acting distant. Some outright avoided me, unsure what to think. Others quietly asked if the rumors were true, their voices hesitant, like they didn't want to hurt me but needed to know. It stung deeply, more than the breakup, more than the online attacks. It felt like I was losing everything I cared about, piece by piece. I remember sitting alone in my apartment one night, scrolling through messages and social media posts, feeling completely isolated. I'd always thought the truth would protect me, that people who knew me would stand up for me. But in the chaos, truth was drowned out by noise, and doubts grew like wildfire. Work became a battlefield, too. My boss called me into a meeting, not to fire me, but to warn me about the situation and how it might affect the team. It felt like a warning shot across the bow that my reputation was sinking, and I had to swim fast if I wanted to survive. Every day was a test. Would someone believe me? Would a client question my integrity? Would I lose my job? At home, the silence was crushing. I felt alone even when surrounded by people. I wanted to reach out to explain everything, but words failed me. How do you prove who you really are when the world only sees the lies? I started questioning myself. Maybe the rumors were true. Maybe I had been blind. Maybe I wasn't the person I thought I was. But deep inside, a flicker of something stronger refused to die, a determination not to let her destroy me completely. I knew I had to fight back, not with anger, but with the truth. But the question was, how? The storm was just beginning, and I was still learning how to stand in it. After the fallout, I thought keeping quiet would protect me. Maybe if I didn't respond, if I stayed out of the online drama, the storm would pass. I told myself that silence was strength, that reacting would only make things worse. So I buried myself in work, avoided social media, and tried to convince my mind to shut down the noise. But silence wasn't a shield. Instead, it felt like a trap tightening around me. Every time I heard my phone buzz, my heart sank. Every mention of my name online was another punch, and the rumors kept growing louder. Friends stopped asking if I was okay. Now they just glanced away. I felt invisible and misunderstood. I wanted to scream to defend myself, but the words caught in my throat. At night, the silence was the loudest. I'd lie awake, haunted by doubts and questions. Was I really as bad as they said? Did I deserve this? The pain of being judged by strangers and by people who once loved me was unbearable. I began to feel like I was disappearing, like the real me was getting lost in a sea of lies. But the more I tried to stay silent, the more the attacks spread. It was like my silence was being read as weakness or guilt. People filled the gaps with their own stories, and no one was listening to my side. That's when I realized something had to change. I couldn't just hide and hope the truth would come out on its own. I needed help. I reached out to a few close friends, the ones I trusted most, and shared everything with them. For the first time, I started gathering pieces of the puzzle, looking for proof that could show the real story. It wasn't easy. Every step felt heavy with fear and uncertainty. But holding on to silence wasn't protecting me, it was letting the lies win. I knew I had to face this head-on, even if it meant exposing myself in ways I never wanted to. The calm before the storm was over. Now it was time to fight back. Reaching out for help was harder than I thought. After everything, trusting anyone felt risky. What if they turned against me too? But the weight of silence was unbearable. So I called my closest friends, the ones who knew me before the chaos, and slowly started sharing my side of the story. Their reaction surprised me. Instead of doubt, I found understanding and encouragement. One friend in particular stepped up, Mark. He's tech-savvy and sharp, and when I showed him the online attacks, he didn't dismiss them. Instead, he started digging, helping me collect screenshots, tracing the anonymous accounts, and even uncovering messages that proved some of the lies were twisted or outright false. Suddenly, the overwhelming flood of accusations felt less like a tidal wave and more like a puzzle we could solve. With Mark's help, I began piecing together a timeline of the online attacks, matching them with moments from the breakup and our conversations. It became clear that my ex had planned this carefully, trying to destroy me by spreading the worst possible rumors. But the truth, the real story behind our relationship and breakup, was different, something I could prove. This process wasn't just about gathering evidence, it was about reclaiming my voice. Each new discovery gave me a little more confidence, a little more hope. I wasn't powerless anymore. The hurt was still there, but underneath it, a new strength was growing, one built on truth and support, not silence and fear. Still, I knew exposing the truth would be risky. Once I went public, there'd be no turning back. But at this point, the alternative, letting her destroy me quietly, was worse. I had to be brave to stand up not just for myself, but for the future I still wanted to build. The calm was gone, replaced by a quiet determination. I wasn't just the victim anymore, I was ready to fight. After weeks of collecting evidence and talking with Mark and a few close friends, I finally realized that silence was no longer an option. Staying quiet had only allowed the lies to grow, and if I wanted to reclaim my life and reputation, I had to face the storm head-on. The thought terrified me. Exposing everything meant opening myself to more judgment and scrutiny. But I knew hiding any longer would destroy me from the inside out. I spent days thinking about how to tell my story. It wasn't just about defending myself. It was about sharing the truth in a way people would believe. I wrote and rewrote drafts, trying to find the right words that balanced honesty with calmness, anger with reason. I didn't want to sound desperate or bitter. I wanted people to see the real me. I also knew the internet could be cruel, so I prepared for backlash. But this time, I wasn't alone. Mark helped me polish everything, ensuring the facts were clear and the proof was undeniable. My closest friends offered their support, ready to stand by me publicly if needed. For the first time since the breakup, I felt a small spark of hope. Finally, the day came when I posted my story, a detailed account of what really happened between us, the lies she spread, and the evidence backing my words. I shared how much the false attacks hurt me, not just emotionally but socially and professionally. I included screenshots, messages, and facts that proved the truth. After I hit post, I held my breath. The reactions were immediate and intense. Some people rallied behind me, offering words of encouragement and support. Others doubted or attacked me, unwilling to believe anything but the sensational lies. But for the first time, my voice was heard loud and clear. Going public wasn't the end of the fight, it was the turning point. I realized that truth alone wasn't enough. I needed patience and strength to face whatever came next. But at least now I wasn't hiding. I was fighting back with everything I had. The moment I shared my side of the story, things started moving faster than I expected. My post didn't just get likes and comments from friends, it went viral. Suddenly, strangers were reading my story, sharing it, and more importantly, questioning the narrative that had painted me as the villain for so long. I still remember the mix of emotions that flooded me that day: relief, disbelief, and a strange kind of adrenaline. It was like the world was finally paying attention, but now I was under a spotlight I hadn't asked for. People began digging into my ex's past too, and as some of her own inconsistencies and lies came to light, the tide started turning. For once, the truth wasn't hiding in the shadows. Messages poured in, some from strangers who had been through something similar, others from friends who apologized for doubting me. I even got calls from coworkers and clients, reassuring me that they believed in me. It felt like a weight lifting off my shoulders, like the fog of lies was finally starting to clear. But viral doesn't always mean positive. My ex caught wind of the backlash and things escalated. She tried to fight back, denying everything and painting herself as the victim. The drama spilled over into public arguments and heated exchanges online. It was exhausting, but I refused to sink back into silence. The difference now was I had the truth and the support of those who mattered. Through it all, I learned something important. Exposing the truth isn't about crushing the other person, it's about setting yourself free. By letting people see the real story, I reclaimed my reputation, piece by piece. And in the process, I realized that the power to control my narrative was mine all along. Still, the battle wasn't over, but for the first time in months, I saw a way out of the darkness. Just when I thought the worst was behind me, the backlash hit like a second wave, bigger and more unexpected. Going viral meant more eyes on my story, but it also meant more opinions, more judgment, and more chaos. Some people didn't want to hear the truth. They preferred the drama, the scandal. Suddenly, I wasn't just dealing with my ex and a handful of doubters. I was facing an online crowd ready to pick sides, often blindly. Trolls appeared overnight, twisting my words, questioning my motives, and dragging up old parts of my life I'd long forgotten. Every new post inviting support came with harsh criticism lurking beneath. Even some friends hesitated, unsure how to navigate the messy public battle. It felt like I was trapped in a storm that no amount of truth could calm. But the hardest part wasn't the strangers. It was the unexpected strain on my personal life. My family became cautious about what they said around me, worried about being pulled into the drama. I noticed people at work giving me sideways glances again, this time unsure how to act with the story now public and complicated. The stress started creeping in, making me doubt if I'd made the right choice going public at all. Yet despite the noise, I also saw a different side. Some people reached out privately, sharing their own stories of being wronged and encouraging me to keep going. Those messages became my anchor, reminding me why I started this fight in the first place, to reclaim my truth and not let lies define me. I learned that exposing the truth doesn't always mean the world will see it clearly or immediately. Sometimes the path to healing is messy, filled with ups and downs. But I was no longer afraid. I was ready to face whatever came next because, deep down, I knew the truth was on my side. After months of chaos, the dust began to settle. The viral storm calmed, and people slowly started to see beyond the noise. The truth I fought so hard to share wasn't just heard, it was believed. My reputation, once shattered, started to rebuild not overnight, but step by step. At work, the atmosphere shifted. Colleagues who once avoided me now greeted me with genuine smiles. Some apologized quietly for doubting me. Projects I thought were lost came back on the table. It wasn't perfect and some scars remained, but I felt like I was regaining control of my life. My friends came back too. The ones who stayed stood firm, and the ones who left helped me realize who truly mattered. I learned the hard way that not everyone is meant to be part of your story, and that's okay. What mattered most was surrounding myself with people who saw me clearly, flaws and all. I also started opening up again, cautiously sharing my experiences with those I trusted. Talking about what happened helped me process the pain and fear. I realized that healing isn't just about fixing your image in the eyes of others. It's about making peace with yourself. This journey changed me. I became stronger, more aware of the power of truth and the danger of silence. I understood now that protecting yourself means more than just hiding. It means standing up, even when it's hard. The pain of betrayal and public attacks didn't disappear completely, but it became part of my story, a chapter I survived and learned from. I wasn't just a victim anymore. I was a man who had faced the worst and still chose to rise. Looking back now, I realize how much this whole experience changed me, more than I ever expected. At first, I was just trying to survive the storm she created. But in the process, I found strength I didn't know I had and learned lessons that will stay with me forever. The biggest lesson: truth matters, but it's not always easy to share. For a long time, I believed silence was safer, but I was wrong. Silence let the lies grow, let my reputation crumble. It took courage to speak out, to put myself back in the spotlight, even when it was terrifying. And that courage made all the difference. I also learned the value of real support, the kind that doesn't waver when things get ugly. My closest friends, my family, and even some strangers showed me kindness and belief when I needed it most. That support became my armor, reminding me I wasn't alone, even when it felt like the whole world was against me. Most importantly, I learned to forgive myself. I carried a lot of guilt and self-doubt, wondering if I could have done things differently. But now I see that sometimes things happen outside our control, and the only thing we can control is how we respond. Today, I'm moving forward, wiser, stronger, and ready to build a life on my own terms. The scars from this battle won't disappear, but they remind me of my resilience. I'm no longer afraid of the truth or of standing up for myself. My ex tried to destroy me online, but in the end, I made the truth viral instead. And that changed everything.